learning self-defense is to make yourself a well-rounded human being. The successful self-defense is when you never even had to throw a first punch. As in, you felt the tension build, you set your boundaries, and you walked away. Something's about to happen, right? So I pull out my concealed carry, and I keep him between my knees. Pull up his gun, and point the gun at me, right? Then I know, right? I know I need to defend myself. Right. 4 feet away. He paces right. He paces left. He tries to pull something out of the sweater. I'm full on PTSD mode. I'm back in Fallujah, a down Humvee after we got blown up. And I needed to decide whether I needed to use my gun or not.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint podcast.
Why not?
The camera.
You gotta look at the camera. I'm gonna look at that camera the whole time like this. Huh?
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint podcast. A quick reminder, show notes for today's episode can be found at the superhumanblueprintpodcast.com. If you like what we do, if you like our stuff, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave us a comment and a rating. Today, I have a very, very special guest because it is a person that is very special to me. He's got quite the bio here, so forgive me while I read a little bit. But we have here today Noi, or Mr. Noi, or Fortunato Dumpit, as he's called by the government. So we'll just call him Noi, but he is known as Mr. Noi to his students. So Mr. Noi is an immigrant from the Philippines. He came here as a youth and grew up here in Orange County, where we are now, or Riverside County, Orange County area, Southern California. Noi is a veteran. He spent some time in the Navy. He did a tour of duty in Fallujah.
Yeah, 2004, 2005. Yeah.
And yeah, I spent some time out there with the Marines and had some experiences in combat out there. After the military, Noi was kind of finding himself here in SoCal, and in that process came across Krav Maga and began Krav Maga training. And he was so good at training and has so much charisma that he was recruited to be an instructor by the owner and chief instructor of that school, and he fell in love. So eventually that led to Noi opening up his own studio, Gateway Cities Krav Maga, which is here in Orange County, just on the border of Orange and LA counties here in Southern California. Gateway Cities Krav Maga, or GC Krav Maga, has been open for going on 8 years? Going on 8 years, almost 8 years. And it's an amazing school. It's got an incredible kids program, an incredible adults program. We're going to talk a lot about self-defense and kind of the value therein today. Noi, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh,
you know so much about me.
I do. And I guess we'll add some color to that statement. So Noi and I did go to high school together for our senior year. So we've known each other since 1998. Now everyone knows how old we are. You want some coffee? You don't want coffee? I brought you a cup. You don't even want coffee.
I came prepared. Like I'm already good. I'm rocking. I'm rolling.
My producer is here. Cosimo, do you want some coffee? He doesn't want coffee. Nobody wants coffee. Fine. I will drink my coffee, which, by the way, is a Gateway Cities Krav Maga Yeti cup that says Mr. Drew on it. So if you want to go be a teacher there, you get cool swag like this cup and this hoodie, which also says instructor on it.
There you go.
So. All right, Noi. Let's start with Gateway Cities Krav Maga. So 8 years in, what's your mission with the school?
The mission of my school. Okay, so when I was doing my business plan, so my business vision was to create a strong society based on people who are dedicated to training and bettering themselves. And with that being said, I opened my school with having the right people in mind, right? So the spread of my school is pretty much professionals, business professionals, law enforcement, first responders, and paraprofessionals that are serving the community, because I myself served. So my heart is in that place, to which I do have programs that are catered to them, right? So one of them is our Code 4 concepts, police jiu-jitsu. That I'm an affiliate with Professor Chad Lyman. He's out of Vegas, SWAT officer. He's been a coach for a really long time. He specializes in defensive tactics, coaching MMA fighters. And another program we have in our school is towards La Habra Police Department's Police Explorers. It's the ROTC of La Habra Police Department.
And for people that don't know what ROTC or Explorers means, can you just explain that real quick?
Sure. So in about high school age, the kids have the equivalent program of what they do in the military or a military preparatory school program. So these kids show up in official La Habra Police Explorers gear. They train defensive tactics with me. Things like takedowns, arrest and control, and some fun stuff. Like fun Krav Maga stuff, gun defenses, striking, grappling, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than those two programs, we do have our adult program, which is doing pretty well, and we have a kids program.
Yeah, and shout out to Officer Ken, who
Yeah, shout out to Officer
who
Ken.
runs the Explorers with the studio.
I'm glad those planets aligned.
Yeah. And for folks that aren't familiar with Explorers programs, it's pretty awesome. So, like you said, high school age kids can go and basically learn what it's like to be a police officer and do the more mild mannered police things. Like they'll go out to community events and kind of be the eyes on the street. Certainly under supervision, but yeah, they'll have various scopes of exposure to different police activities in the most safe and controlled manner. But
May I add, it's also an advocacy program. The program is to advocate for a lot of kids who, let's say, live in the city, right? And it's for the kids to get to know law enforcement because kids at that age, at the teen age and the intermediate school age, they are exposed to a lot of things that are counterculture, which means a lot of, let's say, back in our time in the 90s, it would be like very gangster rap would be like anti-police, right?
yeah,
But how do you get to know the police? And then you do an outreach program, right? So this Explorer program actually creates advocacy between kids at the high school age and the law enforcement officers, right? So you can kind of get to know the people, get to know the city, right? It's also the officer's job to know his beat. So if he knows these kids, right, especially if these kids have their act together, then it's an easy like FaceTime with law enforcement officers. These explorers, they make time to volunteer. So kind of how it works is when, let's say, there's La Habra Tamale Festival or something like that occurs, instead of hiring on, let's say, 10 10 or 20 officers to watch that festival, how the city is going to save money is that they have these explorers, which is they don't work at a law enforcement capacity, but they work a little bit more of a paraprofessional capacity. So they walk around, they have radios, they call the officer, they call the officer for necessary calls. Another one is a DUI checkpoint, right? So some of these kids, it's a very good barometer on the kids to see like driving is real, right? And there are people who would endanger other people by being on the road, and
what are they doing at a DUI checkpoint?
so they help with the line, they lead, right? So they're next to officers. So whenever an officer needs administrative help, for example, let's say somebody to write something down, so the explorer will be right next to the officer while the officer evaluates them or sends them that way. Or some kids are just put in a straight line, so they'll give him some directions, right? They'll have like this flashlight, say like you can go this way, you can go this
Oh,
way.
okay.
Very simple jobs. However, kind of cool because which kids don't really get to stay out late, but some of the DUI checkpoints are like 9 to midnight, and it's awesome because it teaches the families of these kids that they're contributing to society, number one, right, as a good barometer of who you're going to be in the future, and that you can figure out that this family can trust law enforcement and these kids trust law enforcement, and the cycle goes on.
Right.
So law enforcement knows these families.
Yeah, and thanks for the segue. I know it's a deviation from what I mostly want to talk about, but for me personally, I don't know about you all, but I'd never heard of the Explorers before I started teaching at GC Krav Maga, and Mr. Noy was lucky enough to pick up the self defense training for the La Habra Explorers program, and now I become intimately familiar because I've gotten to work with them on a few occasions. So
Yeah,
it's
including the rock down. The rock down was pretty
including the
fun.
rock down, and we'll talk about that because that was a lot of fun. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
We just can't. I believe we just can't put pictures online.
all
We
right, all
can't
right,
do.
sweet.
So we were able to put on a suit and pretend to be bad
The
guys.
suit is basically the beat me up suit. It's just
Yeah. So
full
we're
padding everywhere.
so the military equivalent, for example, in the Marine Corps is the Crucible. So you do your whole boot camp training, right, of 10 to 12 weeks, and at the last week, it's all test like, right? So it's all physical agility tests and things like that, marksmanship and all that. So for the military equivalent, right? But for the Explorers program, it's the stuff that they learned, right? Like police codes, et cetera, et cetera. But at the very end, you have to do very physical things, right? So, for example, you're running, doing push-ups, you're doing squats, and then, you're doing some defensive tactics. You're fighting somebody. You're hitting the pad. You're defending against somebody who's trying to take you down. And then Mr. Drew and I play the final boss with the guys in the suit, and the kids get to beat us up and put us down, and we have to, you know, create even scenarios, which is very fun.
Yeah, we're basically so these yeah, like you said, these kids they're exhausted by the time they get to us. They've done all the things. We're the final bosses. They're pretty smoked, and we are whatever we want to be for the teen in front of us as far as how what experience do we want to give them. Their job is basically to arrest and control, and how do we want to make that experience for them. So mostly we want to make it difficult, because what's the point in being the final boss if you're easy?
And I gotta tell you, the icing on the cake for this one is you see these kids transition. So the Rockdown actually involves almost all the Explorer schools
Yeah, I mean
from
it was held.
San Diego County, Ventura County, even. And we went through, Jesus, like 110
Yeah,
kids or something
a
like
lot of
that.
kids
So
that beat the crap
hopefully
out
we
of
didn't
us
get
that day.
CTE out of that. But the icing on the cake is seeing these kids choose very noble professions. I've seen kids go into the Marine Corps because they excelled in the Explorers program. Some of these kids were actually, when I started the program with Mr. Ken in 2017, I've seen some of these kids go from Explorers to actual La Habra police employees. I think CSOs, dispatch, all the way to officers. And some of these guys actually went from CSO to deputy sheriff, and then lateraled back to La Habra, which very impressive. These guys and these kids have my heart.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you've been in business just long enough that, I mean, some of these teens from when you first started doing explorers are
eight
now in their
years.
like early
Yeah,
20s, maybe almost mid
yeah,
20s.
yeah. So you learn to have these kids in your heart because well, kids program in general. So you have kids that I've had, man, like 6, 8 years old, and now they're in high school competing in wrestling. And we have two kids actually that went to CIF, very recently. So
Yeah.
I'm very proud of them. Yeah.
Well, you've got kids from when you teach it at BC Krav Maga
Yes.
that
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Very cool. They're doing big
grown
things
people
too.
now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And they're still kind of teens, but they're in the adult program now because where do you put them? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Impressive.
look at like McKenna,
Huh?
right?
McKenna's from BC. Yeah, she's in the army now.
Yeah.
She's what do you see? Let me see. I don't remember specifically, but she was going to something in relationship to like jump school or
Yeah.
something like that. So very
Like,
cool. Very
yeah.
cool.
So, all right. So if you look at the logo for Gateway Cities Krav Maga, it says Gateway Cities Krav Maga Family Self Defense Center. So why family? Why did you prioritize family when you were coming up with, kind of how you want to represent the school, and then where has that gone? Like, because it is
Because
definitely a family school.
sure.
But what makes it that way?
Specifically, tradition and roots, right? So my old instructor, his name is Bo. He's a great guy. Love him to death. He's got a great vision with what he's done with his school, and figured I would do the same with mine. But it also comes with this in mind. Krav Maga is a very, let's call it new martial art or progressive martial art, right? Which is like Krav Maga is a systematic approach to take from different systems, okay, and apply with certain principles, right? with certain principles that should be applicable to most. And with that, you're going to see a lot of, very present day stuff, right? But outside of present day stuff, you don't want to lose the virtues of traditional martial arts, right? Traditional martial art meaning to say, you want to cultivate virtues and values, right? In which our school, right, our three core values for our program is honor, courage, and dedication, right?
So right here.
Right there, yes, 100%. So you want to raise. That's why our teens are also in the adult program, right? Some of our, one of the silver linings of the COVID era happening is that I got rid of my teens program. To be honest, I hated it because when you put a bunch of teens together without the example of the adults, the teens kind of look at the mirror and they kind of do this stuff right here, and then you get like,
I know I
man,
had to substitute teach for you for teens a few times, and I do
versus
not like doing it.
when they get to see the adults actually move. They have a sink or swim mentality. They either feel like the pressure is on for them to keep up and catch up, right? So going back to virtues and values, right? Our school is a kind of school that trains together, right? Not just trains together, but trains together with a form of camaraderie that is built through military-like experiences, right? Everybody's doing cadence, 4 count cadence, push-ups, stuff like that, and at the very end, right, cleaning up together. Okay, it's very funny because it wasn't a heckle online by any means, but the guy was saying, "I'm looking at your video and it looks like everybody's cleaning with rags on their feet, and I don't understand because I would be a client, and why would I have to clean the school?" And my response was, you know, well, because, well, another person, right, Officer Steven, shout out to that guy. He had responded something about the value of that, and I said, right. He responded with, well, you can get mops, and I said, and I chimed in with something to the effect of like, correct, but tradition and values is different. If you want to cultivate something that everybody is doing it and everybody's a contributor, right, which is very important to me. That if you're going to be a part of the school, you're part of the school. You don't like go punch some pads, go hurt some of the students there, go home. Okay, you want them to have the ability to bond with each other. Okay, our booklet system and our progression system uh, also has that in mind, right? That you have to represent the school well, you have to represent yourself well, you have to be a better person, you have to be able to handle the newest student, you have to be able to handle the most experienced student as well, right? Once you get to intermediate levels, okay. uh, having like 5 mops in like a 12-person class actually makes 5 people work, but nobody else, right? So versus like we have our means to clean, everybody has the means to go get the rags, go get the bleach and water solution, we clean the mats together, and then we're done. I've seen very good things about it, right? The teens who are training with their parents get to see that their parents are working, and because that's happening, the kids are working. And to my understanding, martial arts make you a better person. So what you do on that mat takes it home, right? You see people who walk taller, their chest up, more confident. They might not have it together on the mat. Sometimes they get nervous. Sometimes, performing anxiety. It's very common and prominent, especially for ladies. But you see the value in the change in them. They start to stick out for themselves. They establish their boundaries better, including with me, especially if they've taken our women's self-defense seminar like 1 2 3 times. Some of these teen girls and these adult women, they like to contribute to the school, and they're there every women's seminar. They know it already, right? They already know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of like a refresher. And then I still get texts sometimes of, hey, Mr. Noy, I was having a conversation with my boss, and I felt like he was kind of walking all over me. So I established my boundaries with him, and you know what? I just wanted to share that with you, and it was freaking awesome because I got that from the seminar. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, one of the success stories that I heard was from a private client of mine that I used to train at the studio, and and it really just came down to confidence, not even self defense skills, but just confidence. And someone approached her in an aggressive fashion, attempting to be flirtatious, but it was unwelcome, and she made it very clear very quickly, and it was fine. That resolved the situation. But this was an approach that was new for her. In the past, she would have just been nice, and it probably would have carried on, and she would have remained uncomfortable for a much longer period of time.
Feel great, don't it?
Yeah.
Getting these messages. I love those ones. I love the ones where like the officers, some of my officers in PJJ would say like, "Bro, we literally just did this drill where we had to do some arrest and control, and I had to give orders to other police, and it literally happened on my very next shift, and it worked really well. Thanks." So I got nothing but gratitude for the best things happening there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I don't get into the studio much these days with my work and my parenting and my being a husband and trying to be present in a lot of places at once,
Time will shift.
but it gives me a massive amount of fulfillment in a way that nothing else does when I am able to contribute.
Time will shift. Time will shift, and you'll be back, and you'll be having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another aspect of family self-defense is just families not just being together and kind of how it creates a bond within the family, but also just the training itself, right? Like, look at, we got a couple of parents that come in and take our adult class, and they got 3 kids, one of whom is too little
Yeah,
to,
the Guzmans.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, one of whom is too
Great
little
family.
to take class yet. But then we have their oldest son takes the adult class with them, he's a teen, and then their younger son takes the kids class, right? And when the parents and the older son are taking the adult class, the the other 2 kids just hang out, and it's just like they're all just there as a family. Like, it's a family experience, and it's something that they can take home and they can talk about, and when they're getting ready for test day, they can practice together. And when I was running a drill for them one time, it was in fight class, and we were doing kind of a third party protection type of thing. And yeah, it was like, okay, I'm talking to the older son who's in the class, and I'm like, okay, you got to protect your mom. Your dad is not your dad; he's a bad guy, and he's picking on your mom, and he's about to get violent, and it is your job to not necessarily fight him off, but to get her out of the situation.
Yeah, very very grateful for that and for them. I've known their oldest boy. He's taller than me now. Like, I don't even know. He's probably like 6 inches taller than me right now.
Okay.
I'm pretty short, so But I've known him since he was his little brother in the kids white belt
Okay.
program. So cool. But on that note with them, I do love that I am I love and am grateful for, like, you have no idea, for people like them that travel like an hour to come to our school.
Really, I did
I
I
know
didn't
La
know they
Habra.
were coming that far.
Yeah, they're close to Lido Creek. I forget the
I
name of
don't
the
even
city
know where that is.
specifically. It's where we do our shooting
Oh, right, right, right.
courses.
Oh,
Yeah,
that,
we
yeah,
do it.
that is
Yeah,
far.
it's pretty darn far. It's like an hour. They drive an hour, rain or shine. They come in. They're there. They camp out at the kids classes. They finish out with the kids classes. They have a quick snack maybe in between the kids classes and the adult classes, and they're there all day.
Yep.
Other examples of that. Coach Hashan, he travels from the same area. He drives like an hour just to make sure that we have our student body gets the best version of himself. It's awesome. Mr. Dong travels all the way from Costa Mesa, Santa Ana area. So I'm very grateful for the kind of people we have. Mr. K, Coach K,
Yep.
he comes from Huntington Beach, just to be able to teach out of our school. So I feel like, it's true what they say about entrepreneurship. It's like 99% feeling of failing, but like that 1% makes it worth it. So you're like, oh my God. So we got so many people to be grateful for. They travel so far. We've had students all the way from like Mission Viejo come up. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was Alex back in the day, and even like, when I used to train more, I don't much anymore, but when Kat and I were training regularly, we were coming from here, which is still 20 miles.
Pasadena. Oh, the Marissa Serafini herself.
Yeah.
Shout out to her. She travels all the way from Los Angeles, right? She works out of Beverly Hills, and she comes in, trains every Saturday, rain or shine. Some Wednesdays.
Yeah. Yep. It is a beautiful thing. And I mean, we got a lot of family dynamics. We have siblings that train together. We have fathers and sons that come in and take class, like Moy and Damien. We got mothers and daughters. We got, mothers and sons, fathers and daughters, whatever. We got the whole dynamic, and it's absolutely beautiful. All right. With that in mind, why is this important for regular people? Like, who cares about learning self defense? We live in a pretty safe area. Mostly, we live in a safe society. We've got a police force. Why should people even care about self defense?
Why should people care about self-defense? This is a good question. People should care about self-defense because of that one time that you don't know. Okay. So if you remember, back in the 90s, like it's martial arts was a little bit, it's not as prominent nor available because of the internet, right? So now everybody's training, everybody's doing Krav, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, stuff like that. And it brings people to the door. People who knew how to fight back then would be just people who knew how to fight, including law enforcement, right? There used to be a saying in law enforcement that, like, you really want that wrestler to be on your team if you guys are getting ready to do some arrest and control, because that's the guy who knows it. So the philosophy of self-defense is that you have to be able to have the conditioning, right? Physical, mental, psychological, spiritual, and and other means, right? So learning self-defense is just that. So it's to make yourself a well-rounded human being. One, if you train, you are calmer. Two, you think better under pressure. Okay. And you're gonna have to touch base with me on that one, on the adrenalization and the pressure, because I have a really cool story about it.
Okay.
You are more mentally equipped, meaning if you're practicing self-defense and you're also reading books on self-defense, then you understand how things work, right? How a societal script works, right? How conversations work, how tensions build. Like sometimes self-defense is the successful self-defense is when you never even had to throw a first punch, as in you felt the tension build, you set your boundaries, and you walked away. Awesome,
Yep.
right? Okay. Spiritual, so and not necessarily strictly only religion based, right? But like spiritual, as in, like, are you complete yourself, as in, like, where do you draw from your heart, as in, if your spirit is not strong, then neither is your mental, right? So it's a very large collective of things. Okay. So my adrenaline story, I'm gonna tell you. I drive maybe 40 minutes to go to my shop. Okay. So, and I also want to be a student. I like to be a student, so I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out of a school in Westminster area. Okay. His name is Professor Magno. Shout out to that guy. He's a really cool guy. I love him to death. So I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I wanted to venture in other things. I'd like to think my education has always been in martial arts, right? So I have my, let's call it bachelor's, right? I have my bachelor's in Krav Maga,
Right.
which is like my second degree black belt, and then I have my minor, right? I have a major and I have my minor. I have a minor in Jiu-Jitsu right now, so I'm training out of Professor Magno's gym, and then I wanted to test adrenaline, so I jumped into a competition. Okay. And in this competition, my goal wasn't really to win or to place or to medal, but it's to manage my adrenaline. Okay. And I was fairly successful, and I loved it. I was able to control myself. I remembered everything in my matches. The things that when you spar with people, and or when you get into an altercation, when you say, I don't know, I don't remember anything, right? All I know is this is happening, that's happening. I remember a punch, so that's a byproduct of adrenaline. You don't know what is going on until after. I said, like, oh wow, and then you see the cameras, right? And you didn't know that you did XYZ,
Okay.
which could be good and bad for you, right? So if you're in an altercation and then you end up in court and you don't remember anything, then it's a metric for you, right? You have to be able to recall things. You have to be able to, you know, have the maturity and responsibility to articulate yourself in court, right? In martial arts. So that's my goal. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to stay on track here. But after my competition, not so long after, the day before the Christmas party of our studio, I was in my car heading home, and then my car misfired, and my car's done that before, and I said, you know what? I've been here before, so I know I'm gonna need a tow. So I pulled into a shop. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep things ambiguous because
Sure.
you know I try to leave. I only want to put pertinent information
Right.
in. So I pull in and I pull over and I'm on the phone with my wife because I'm always calling her on my way home. She calls me on her way home, so it's kind of like her days start early and my nights end late. So that's a way of quality time for us as a couple. So we're on the phone. I'm driving. The car misfires, and I say, "Oh, honey, I gotta pull over." Okay. So I pull over in front of this restaurant, and the spaces on on the parking was like diagonal, but I park right, like just on top of these lines. It's not very
Yeah, you parked across like two or three spots.
across 2 or 3 spots next to the restaurants, right? It was by 8:30 at the time, but the restaurants are slowly closing and stuff. So 8:30 turned into 9:30, then turned into 10 o'clock, and the restaurants closed. Everything's
Where's the tow
closed, right?
truck?
Everybody left. Tow truck's not there yet. So I was talking to my wife, right? And she goes like, "Well, I don't even know, like, what the heck, you know." Anyway, fast forward to about 10:20 p.m. I'm still there. Okay. Car's running, but it will misfire if I kick it on drive. So I'm there on the phone with my wife, and I see a either like a silver or gray Forerunner. Okay, they pull in from the front, and then they meet up with me, and then I look inside the window of the car. There's three guys, and I could tell they were like inebriated or high or something like that. Because when you look at somebody in the eyes and there's nothing behind the eyes, then they're
Yeah.
like, oh man. And plus, they had like terrible hair, is all cowlick looking, right? And they're like, okay, so these guys are all like either meth out of their minds or something. So they bank a right, and then they park right behind me, but so close that I can't see their license plate. So I said, oh man, okay, something's about to happen, right? So I pull out my concealed carry and I keep it between my knees, right? Because I don't know what's going on. I get nervous, right? So my hands start shaking, kind of shaking right now, actually. My hands start shaking, right? And I'm like, oh man, here we go. I'm in a down vehicle. I'm back in Fallujah. I'm in a down vehicle, unsure if there's like danger, and then there's people behind me. Okay, so my defense mechanism starts kicking in. My wife is talking to me on the phone. I say, shh, give me a second. Can you please do me a favor? Get a piece of paper and a pen, and I need you to write this
Yeah.
down. Okay. Silver Forerunner, blah blah blah. Three males, somewhere between those. I describe them right, and I said I can't get the license plate because they parked literally behind me. Okay. And at this point, I need to do two things. I need to organize my thoughts because you know I need to talk myself down to a better breathing pattern.
Mm,
Right. And I need to talk myself down so I have better fine motor skill. I didn't say this,
right.
right? Because I'm panicking, but I'm trying to explain to her in my best version. And she talks, and I said, give me a minute. Okay, give me a minute. Okay. They're shifting inside their car. I'm looking at my rear view mirror, my side mirrors, right? So I'm evaluating what they're doing. Because for all I know, they're employees, right? And they're just wondering who the heck am I, right? So the rear passenger side opens on their car. I say, oh crap, here we go. So I'm nervous, right? So this guy comes out of the car. He goes to a business, at which at this point I'm like, okay, he's an employee. I think he's good.
Yeah.
He's good. Okay. So I'm sitting there. And then he goes to the next business over and rattles the door too. So I'm thinking, oh my God, crime of opportunity. So now I'm in trouble. Okay. Because I'm next, right? Because I'm the only person there. So if they're looking for an opportunity for crime, the next opportunity for the door is me. Okay. So I said something to the effect, with my wife. I forget specifically how, like the chronology of it because it's been a while now. But I tell my wife, hey, do me a favor, get on La Habra Dispatch and then get me on three-way. I'm freaking out. I'm talking to my wife while I'm freaking out. I'm trying to have it, to where I'm solid. And I said, this guy is in a hood, in a big baggy hoodie. His hood is down. He's kind of pacing like this. You can kind of tell there's something in the sweater, right? And so after he rattled the second door, he walks towards me a little bit. Like he turns and faces me, okay, right at this side of my car. which is at the passenger
Yep.
side. I'm like, oh man, he's coming here. So I've decided, right, that if he were to knock on my window and he were to knock, let's say, with a firearm on the door, right, then I know for sure. Or if he were to pull up his gun and point the gun at me, right, then I know, right? I know I need to defend
Right.
myself. Or if he were to, let's say, threaten me with a weapon or something like that, I was gonna roll the window down, right? And then I know the dimensions of my window. So when I roll my window down, I was just gonna pop one and then run and then dump the magazine in the other car, right? So when he was walking towards the side, he angles, right? He angles to the back passenger of my car. So I freak out even more because I'm like, oh man, and now I have to adjust my angle, right? So I'm thinking very weird stuff here at this point. I'm either gonna point here or I have to like angle and point here, but not look at him because I know he's gonna ask for connection, right? Like psychologically speaking, he's gonna ask for connection. So if he asked me to roll window down, if I press the button down, I have to like he has to talk to me, which means like if I'm not looking at him, then he expects me to engage with him. So that's why that was my strategy. So he looks at my rear door, 4 feet away. He paces right. He paces left. He tries to pull something out of the sweater, right? But it doesn't come out, and he runs inside their forerunner,
Okay.
and then they take off. So all that quiet, and I was waiting, and I was trying to make these decisions, you know, and then I go, man, and that's when my wife goes like, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" Blah blah blah. Blah. I said, "No, no, they took off. They took off. They took off. I need to hang up on you now though because I'm chock full of adrenaline. Like I cannot stop my hands from shaking for the life of me." So fast forward, maybe like another 30 minutes, the tow truck driver comes in. I'm quiet on the drive home.
Yeah.
And then I'm quiet, right? Once I get home, I couldn't even go to bed. I'm full on PTSD mode. I'm back in Fallujah in a down Humvee after we got blown up, and I needed to decide whether I needed to use my gun or not. So I was like, oh man, I'm pacing. I went on top of the dog's kennels like this, and I'm just scrolling on my phone, angry.
Angry scrolling. That's not good for your mental state either.
But no silver linings. This is the punchline. I wanted to the point that I wanted to prove is that by learning self defense, you learn about yourself, you learn about your own physiology. That nobody is fight or flight. Okay, you're fight or flight at the time that you're in, right? So when you it's very Dunning Kruger of somebody to say like I'm always fight. Yeah, I'm a mom, right? I'm always fight. This is the I'm always gonna defend my cubs, and I'm this you know big mama bear, right? Because you're not. You don't know the 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 moment trouble comes up to you at your front door. You don't know who you are. So now you can only create strategies, right? You can only create strategies to one mitigate, right, the adrenaline that's gonna hit you. Okay, which I'm very thankful that I competed because very recently was that competition, and I'm like, maybe like 2-3 weeks
Yeah.
later, I'm in a position where I needed to possibly use right force, right? That I'm like, oh man, I gotta mitigate my adrenaline. I gotta make sure, it was very like Gerard Butler 300, right? Like I had to have a steady hand. I have to talk myself down with a steady hand. My 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 breathing was very shallow. I had to make sure I would breathe and control it, and then exhale slowly. You know. So I had that experience was that chain of experiences was very useful for me, and it's a form of continuing my education, right? So if I'm teaching things on the mat that says like, okay, well, when you get into an altercation, your fine motor skill goes away. I can't just say
Right.
that and not know it, right? So yeah.
Well, that it ties into something that I talk about a lot, which is getting reps in and reps on anything, right? Like I get in this cold plunge every day. I'm getting my reps in, but I can stay longer. My longest is 7 minutes. The first time I got in it was a minute and a half, and that was the worst minute and a half of my life. I've had a podcast recently about the value of being out in the sun, but you can't just be pasty as hell like I normally am and then walk out into the sun and reap all the benefits. You're going to fry. So you get your reps in a controlled way. Same thing with self-defense. And consider that, so you've been training Krav Maga specifically for a long time, for more than a decade. You yeah, you saw combat in the military, you have experience in wrestling from high school, and you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. And still, when you were faced with a situation, right, your physiology did what your physiology was going to do, but your reps allowed you to acknowledge what your physiology was doing and still attempt to make specific decisions about what you're going to do with that, as well as what you're going to do with the situation at hand. You're acknowledging both the person outside your car as well as you're shaking hand and saying, okay, what am I going to do about this, and what am I going to do about this? Without your reps, you don't even know what to focus on.
100%. Yeah.
And a lot of what I preach is being an asset, and that's not just in a self-defense situation, but just in life. Like, be the person that your friends want to be there in a time of need, whether it's for emotional support, whether it's for support. If your friend is moving, nobody wants to help their friend move, but let's just say your friend needs help moving, be the person that's not all broken and decrepit, right? Take care of your body. If you're in a threat situation, what are you going to do if someone threatens your loved one and you have no idea how to handle that situation?
May I add to the training, when self-defense and training, right, itself gives you not the whole answer, but a base level decision making
I agree.
process, right? So, like, Krav Maga has a lot of taboos on it in the martial arts community, right? Okay. And I would say, if there is, yes, vet your instructors and vet them well, because some of these guys will sell snake oil. I 100% will agree with the criticisms that are involved. However, the way that you train gives you not the full answer, but the base level decisions. For example, right? If a white belt learns like a headlock escape, right? The headlock escape is the base level decision, because you're gonna hear the hecklers online. Well, what about this? What if that? Oh, that doesn't work because I've tried it. This one, that one, this one. But hey, dummy, you have a base level decision of where to start, and then when that fails, you have something else,
Right.
right?
Knowing
Right.
something is always better than knowing nothing.
100%. 100%. Right.
And the same can be said for example, our women's seminars, right? It's a 2-hour seminar, only about half of which is physical training. And so there's not a lot of opportunity to get reps in, but it's something. It creates, if nothing else, it creates an awareness of the fact that, one, their threats are real, and here's an outline of what that may look like, and two, there are options for things that you can do when you are under physical threat.
Yes. 100%.
And so you kind of hinted at this as well. So there are a lot of naysayers on Krav Maga. So is Krav Maga even a martial art? No, is it a martial
It
art?
is. It is, but it isn't. A self-defense system, it is, but it isn't, right? So Krav Maga is a culmination. Historically, sure, historically, right? It was created by a guy who's a wrestler and a boxer, and he did the IDF's martial arts program.
That's the Israeli
In
Defense
which
Force.
that is correct.
Okay.
So with those three base levels, right? Krav Maga is philosophy through the creator Emil Lichtenfeld. What I actually, by my definition, right, or by my perspective, or how I see it, right, looking at what I know with the research that I've done with my own field of study in this art form, is that you got to know how to strike, you got to know how to roll, and you have to have a militarized mentality, right? Like, dang it, the phrase escapes me. Like force on force contact, right? Force on force contact. So, for example, in force of action, I'm sorry, I believe that's the term. So, if let's say you're in the infantry and you're running an infantry patrol, right? Staggered column. The way they train is, if there's somebody that pops shot on the left side, everybody faces their guns to the left, and everybody's the one guy that notices. The one guy that notices it first will yell contact left, right? Which in this case, the rest of the platoon says contact left, turns in that direction, and wherever the building that that pop came from is demolished. Okay, that's a combat environment specific training. So to me, Krav Maga is just that, right? Which means we're training sport specific things like striking of Muay Thai or kickboxing, striking of Muay Thai, kickboxing or boxing. I'm sorry, with grappling skills like wrestling, judo, and jujitsu, right? And then figuring out, are there force multipliers, guns, knives, sticks, right? And then you use the militarized approach of you attack until it's subdued, right? There's a few other criticisms and myths on Krav Maga, but I'd like to think that like here's a good way to vet your instructor. Ask them what is a principle, right? Because by your definition, what is a principle?
A principle is just something that you hold to. It's something that carries
But let's talk about martial arts techniques, right? What is a principle?
principles that has to work in multiple situations.
Work in multiple situations, right? So like let's call it an idea or a concept work, right? So here's a good way to vet Krav Maga schools. Krav Maga is most proud to say that it's a system of principles and ideas. Okay, but if you go to Krav Maga school and all they teach you is technique, then maybe there's a there's an inefficiency, right? And maybe either instructor training or how information is
So
passed.
you're saying
Because
there's no why
you know,
behind it. There's no dissection. Okay.
correct, right? If they just say like, oh, you do this, you step here, you put here, put your elbow here and here, okay, it's again and again and again and again and again. Okay, so versus like you have to understand that when you teach somebody, you have to teach them at least one concept, right? Because I do recall, I've gone to other Krav Maga schools. Sometimes I've, before my business opened, and I would go to different school and just kind of pretend I'm not
Yep.
nobody, I'm a dumb white belt, right? And this they will say Krav Maga's principles is this, right? You have to, it's a forward moving system, and you have to attack the attack, right? And you have to keep moving forward. And I'm like, okay, keep moving forward. What if the guy I'm against, I'm 5'6", bro? Like, what if the guy I'm against is like 6'5"? No, you have to keep moving forward. Like, how? By groin kicks, this and that. And that. Okay, they tuck their knees. Oh, by doing this, by doing that. Okay, sure, right. So like, okay, so it's a principle or a concept that is flawed. That is not fully. It's not fully matured, I guess. In martial arts, in my opinion, versus like if you were to say, sure, it's a forward moving system, which is a description, not a concept. But what you teach is, let's say, angle principle, right? Angle principle or life side, dead side principles, which is, go to the dead side, all his weapons are pointed away from you, right? Then you can attack forward. Now you can attack forward. So that guy that was 6'5", if you can get past him, right? Then now you can move forward. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So yeah, I have my criticisms of my own system just based on the premise that somebody who wants the name Krav Maga as a martial arts center can actually attain it in like, I don't know, like a 2 hour course or some crap like
Right.
that, right? So you're like, all right, come on. So you're still, and to the credit of people who do teach Krav Maga, right? They're only really teaching it in their lens, right? So like a Taekwondo guy, like, okay, so in the 80s when it showed up in the United States, to what I was told, right? You have to have a black belt in another system to even be considered as a Krav Maga instructor. Okay, so what does that tell you? If you are a Taekwondo black belt and you hear about this, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a great program, so I can add it as an attribute to my business, to my small business of martial arts. Goes and certifies in Krav Maga for whatever that one
Mhm.
is, right? And they come back, but guess what they're teaching?
Taekwondo.
Taekwondo through the like Krav Maga through the eyes of Taekwondo. So all the answers, all the reactions are probably predicated on a Taekwondo esque martial art,
Yep.
right? So now reverse engineer the creator of Krav Maga, right? He's a boxer and a wrestler. So shouldn't you be one boxing the most, two wrestling the most, you know, and then use those principles around
Yep.
it. Okay, yeah, you know,
And something that differentiates Krav Maga that I have to explain to people when they ask me what it is from what I guess we could say a traditional martial art is that it truly is self-defense based. Like it's very heavily focused on combat, but in a self-defense capacity, in that there is no such thing as a Krav Maga competition, because Krav Maga is meant to neutralize. It's not meant to score points. Fundamental Krav Maga technique: groin kick. Right, groin kick is illegal in every single martial art. You cannot
yeah.
kick anyone.
Hit him where it hurts. Yeah, hit him
Yeah,
where it
you
hurts.
cannot
Yeah.
hit anyone in the groin in a traditional martial art.
That comes with
In
restrictions also,
in
right? Right. So hit him in the groin, or eye gouge him, or do X Y Z. That's it works, but it doesn't because you have to find the
Right, you have to
opportunities
find
to
the
do so.
opportunity,
Yeah.
but it's an example of why people are like, are there Krav Maga competitions? Like, no, because people, you can only poke someone in the eye or kick him in the groin or punch him in the throat so many times before.
I've seen a few kind of try to monetize
Yeah.
that, try to monetize that ideology. I believe I forget the name of that, but there was a guy who probably a Krav Maga guy that got a bunch of martial arts guys, and they put them in a bunch of what Krav Maga seminars usually do, right? So like you fight in a bus, you fight here, you fight there. I forget what it was, but I know Icy Mike is famous on YouTube, and he was one of the contestants.
Okay.
So shout out to that guy. He was pretty cool. If you guys want some YouTube internet content on self defense, he's pretty good. They look for the people who excel in it. So one kind of specializes in one martial art, another one's on another one, another one on another one, and then they kind of put them in a reality based
Sure.
situation, right? Which is just kind of cool by novelty.
Well,
For me.
that's the idea with Krav Maga, is it's supposed to be based on reality based threat situations. So
Correct. Yeah.
we learn to fight, but the purpose in an altercation from a Krav Maga standpoint, you're not supposed to stay in the fight. You're supposed to either end the fight or remove
Sure. Yeah.
yourself.
Sure.
Like that's
Yeah.
the
I'm with
objective.
you.
The objective isn't
Yes.
to face off and score a hit
Yeah.
and score another hit.
And
And
then it's American progressive society, right? Like progressive meaning like modern, not you know. You also have to know the law.
yeah, well, there's that too.
Right? You have to know totality of
Yep.
circumstance, right? Which is very hard because like who studies that? Who has time for that? Which business professional who's like maybe a business owner has time to study that? You have to. So going back, you know, when you when you go to Krav Maga school, know the veteran teachers. Know what they know and know what they're talking about, and even go as far as saying know that whether the instructors know to look up the answer if they don't have one and not just make it up. Some people just kind of make it up like I just do this. I've actually heard this one. It's like, oh yeah guys, I never wear my seatbelt if I'm inside my neighborhood. I only put it on when I'm really just getting on the freeway because you never know if I'm in an alley and I get attacked and my seatbelt's on me. And I'm like, shut up, nerd. Yeah.
Hey, you never know. I mean, that seatbelt, they ruin as many lives as they save. Not really. Wear your seatbelt, people. Okay, and Krav Maga for kids, what does that look like? Because in the adult program, we're teaching like, okay, you got multiple attackers, you got people with weapons, you're gonna incapacitate, you're gonna just wreck this person and then flee, or control the situation until law enforcement arrives. What are you teaching kids in your Krav Maga kids program?
So I would say it's a blend combination for my program. It's a blend combination. I actually, I'm grateful for both of this. He taught me how his kids program works, and it's a lot like his kids program, where I do teach Krav techniques, okay, with kids defense philosophy, right, which is like at 7 years old in school, your job is not to stay in the fight, and it's to go find an adult. So punch them as hard as you can if you need to, right? Hit them as many times as you can if you need to. But your first approach is to go run and go find a competent adult, right? That you trust, right? You trust, meaning to say the school security, your parents, if you're in a park, police officer or something like that. It's very, very important to make a distinction that like knowing how to fight is not your job. especially if you're like, a one and a half years of training. Your job is to stay disengaged. Your job is to get safe, right? Whether to hurt somebody or run and get safe. Okay. It also promotes trust. Okay. Like with a kid hates being in trouble. Okay. And by virtue, if they're getting in, it means that they're going to get in trouble. They're going to do one of two things, right? One is to go run and hide behind somebody that they trust, or two, hide, period. Hide it from people they trust and hide it from the people who are trying to hurt them. So, which of the two evils do you prefer, right? You want them to run to a competent adult or somebody that they trust, mom, dad, something, right? Because at the end of the day, we all know that if your kid gets hurt in the school, the kid doesn't want to get in trouble with the principal. However, is probably under the assumption that will also get in trouble with parents, which we don't want, right? As parents, we should be the ones that the kids trust, right? Like if my son Mark was still, let's say, 7 years old and he's in school and he's getting bullied and he broke a kid's nose, my first question isn't like, what did he do? It would be like, well, what did the other kid do? Right. And lastly, with this kids program is that it has a touch of traditional martial arts, right? You have to, it's their first lesson in professionalism, right? Maintaining a uniform, tying a belt properly, standing tall, being confident, or if you're not confident, practice of being confident, right? That is very necessary because sometimes some people are just born with this penchant of being hungry for hardship, and outlier kids, right? Like outlier kids, like a Ria or an Izzy or a Sarah, right? Or an Estelle, right? But some of these kids are fairly self-conscious, right? So you have to foster that confidence in them through practice first. You have to make them practice being confident, right? How do you do that? You make them count loud, right? You make them yell. You make them do the workout and be the leader of the workout. Yell down, up, right? And then all the other kids yell the number, right? Or the
I
cadence, I
love that,
guess.
by the way. The leadership that you have in the kids program that comes from the kids in the kids program is phenomenal. I mean, and you obviously you know who to pick for that. You pick the older kids that you know you can count on to stay focused and run an exercise. But it's really cool to see. And I know some of these kids that help out with that are not really kids anymore. They're getting older, but at the time that you pulled them in, and even some of the younger ones that you're starting to bring into that leadership position within the classes, it's just it it makes me hungry to see that and hopefully see that in my children one day.
Yeah, 100%. And these teens, they we don't have a teens program anymore, right? We have the teens and the adults program, and a lot of these teens love helping with the kids program, and it's amazing because it gives them a sense of purpose, right? Like teens, let's say humans in general, right, are more likely to want to go and take the easy route. And scientifically we are fed with that information to take the easy route, right? Phones, the one factor that that makes any kind of business idea make money is that you're saving time, right? So let's understand that psychologically. So for kids, right, to them it's easier to be on the phone, to be on a laptop, to be on an iPad, to be lazy, to not do the push-ups, right? The school system went from like having the requirement of like 20 push-ups, right? I don't know. I don't remember. You remember like when we were in high school, like what was the
It
requirement for
wasn't
push-ups?
much, but it was
Like it was
something.
like
Yeah,
16 or
yeah, yeah,
20, something
yeah,
like that. Like from what I heard from our most recent kids in high school,
yeah.
like our teens, the requirement is 6.
And I bet some of them can't even do that.
Yeah, but that's why, right? So like, why are you lowering the standard and when lowering the standard is only making it worse? What you actually should do, right, is lead by example. So because the teens work with the adults lead the kids to do the right thing, and then by mere virtue, the teens are now, right, because they love helping out with the kids program. They'll help, and one of two things are happening. I have the teens, and these kids love the teens because they look up to them. So the teens set a good example, right? And these kids, they get their act together, and then they do this by monkey see, monkey do. Okay, I don't remember the specifics. I use this for instructor training all the time. there was an old study, right? They have a living room looking environment. Okay. There's a TV, carpet, right? It's old. It must have been from like the 70s or 60s. The old wooden
Yep.
box TV, toys on the floor, coffee table, and then a toddler, right? They put a toddler in the room. Okay. And somewhere between that, they bring in a woman, right? Not their mom, right? They bring in a woman. Okay. Probably the age of the mom. And then they put her in a corner, and then the mom cries, right? Okay. So I want to say I'm failing describing this, by the way,
Okay.
but you'll get the point. But the largest percentage of the toddlers has always, when they see the girl cry, is that they would go and try to satisfy the the woman, as in, hey, do you need a hug? Can I help you? Like in the baby
Right.
way, right? The toddler way, right? So they'll go up, they'll bring a toy to the woman who's crying, or they'll hug her or something like that, and they'll sit with her. So what does that tell us, right? Kids are actually molded in our environment to to please an adult. Okay, so by that extending chain of custody, right? The teens don't want to look bad. They want to keep up and please the adults. So they'll train with the adults, right? Okay. So it's their twofold wake up call of like, I better get my act together, or else if I can't perform as a teen in the adult class, then I have to go to the kids class, right? Which kind of lets them get their
Okay.
act together. And then the teens and the kids, right? The kids are like, oh, these teens are very cool because, oh my God, they're in the adult program. They're not here. So they go into this stage where they want to please the
Yeah.
teens. Okay. And at the same time, they're doing the same thing with me because I own the school, right? So like the owner of the school, everybody wants to be their friend. Everybody wants to like the blessing of the owner, right? So which is a very good like ecosystem of doing right. Hence the school motto: you do what is hard today, right? And you can accomplish the impossible tomorrow. You can do the impossible tomorrow, which is, man, like if you look at the school right now, it's amazing. Like the kids are doing great. They segue into the adult program, and then they do even better,
Right.
right? And they end up, from kids, and when they end up as teens in high school, they end up in sports like wrestling. And then we got like these two kids, right, Lucas and Estelle, that just literally went to CIF, like, you know last Friday.
Yeah, and
So
Estelle's only been formally wrestling for a short period of time, but she's been grappling in your school
she's a
for
freshman.
years.
She's a freshman that went
Yeah.
to CIF.
Incredible.
So that's a lot to say, because CIF, right, for high school is kind of like the CrossFit Games of high school, right? And then the next thing you're gonna do is what? It was a CIF, a regional, then masters, and then state, right? So it's like it's her first dose of
Yeah.
that at a freshman
Right.
level. So how
Pretty
awesome is
awesome.
that, right? Right. So Estelle, if you're listening, shout out. Okay, Lucas, same thing.
They're
He's
too cool to accept your shout outs.
killing it,
Too
huh?
cool to accept your shout outs.
No,
You
don't
lame
worry. The
grown
teen,
up.
the other teens that watch this will probably hear it, and then we'll send it to them. You know, Especially if you put it on Instagram, I guarantee you.
So there's a lot of accountability that you put on these kids as well within their own scope of control. For example, in order to test, they need to bring in note from, or they need to have their teacher fill in a
Correct.
form, right, saying
Correct.
how they've been doing in school, that they've been showing up
Correct.
well, etc. Their
Correct.
parents have to have involvement.
So it's called the parent teacher
Okay.
form. The parent teacher form in the kids program is intended to follow through with what martial arts is teaching kids, right? So who you are on the mat, even if you're the best performer, you have to still show that you are learning, martial arts virtues, right? So, honor, courage, dedication. In the kids program, we have like these 6 words, right? So, which is like courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, honor, and discipline, which is like probably within the best parameters, core values of what a parent would want in their child. So, before they test, they have to score a particular amount of points within these virtues, right, or these attributes, right? Are they doing their chores at home? Scale of 1 to 10. Are they courteous to their family, right? Scale of 1 to 10. Are they practicing, right? Because if that's a part of the parent teacher forum, the kids can't just be on their iPads the whole time. The parents can make the executive decision of incentivizing, all right, if you want 1 hour of iPad time, I want 1 hour of training. right? The parents sometimes go buy mats, put it in the garage, get some punching bags, go to the garage for 1 hour, go punch that bag, or go practice your kicks, go practice your punches, go practice your
Yep.
self-defense, right? Go take your siblings with you, which is awesome, so there's all that, and then there's another section for teachers, right? Respect for the classmates, respect for this, homework is done on time. So once all those requirements are met, the kid has to bring it to me, right? And sad to say, I mean, like sometimes if they got low scores, right, they bring it to me in
Yeah.
shame, you know, and they don't get in trouble. We talk
Right.
about it,
That's the
and then
beautiful
like
part, right? It's not like if they don't show up well on the form, it's not like they're banned from proceeding or progressing,
correct, correct.
but it means that they have to
Well,
have a
but
conversation.
it also posits the situation for me that I need to intervene, as in like, do I need to talk to the child? Do I need to talk to the child with the parents? Do I need to do a combination of both? Do I need to talk to the parent only? And does the parent, it gives me the parent and the student as a team the ability to make an executive decision, as in, if the kid loves martial arts, right, and is a really high performer, but they don't have their act together, and the parent says, let's not test her this cycle,
Yeah.
then this young child's gonna be like, oh no, I don't want to fail. I promise I'll get my act
Okay.
together. And then they actually do get their
Yeah.
act together. Like it's, utilizing that fear is a good thing, or that not necessarily fear, but it's like a fear of not keeping up with their peers.
Right.
It's kind of like in sixth grade, everybody wants to go to seventh grade, and like, all your friends are gonna go to seventh grade, but like you got F's, bro.
Yeah.
So
Hey, can I ask for some advice since we're here?
yes,
And I'd probably ask you for this advice anyway, but might as well do it here so maybe everyone
sure.
else can learn too.
Answers do it.
So Kaio, my son, just started Taekwondo. So he's 2
Sure.
weeks in. He's almost 5. So his maturity level, by my estimation, it only just in the last maybe 6 months reached a point where he could take a martial arts class where he could sit down and yeah, thank you, sit down and pay attention long enough to like make it to the end of class. And this because when Kaio was 3.5 or so, he was doing private lessons with you because he used to go to a daycare down the street from your school, and his attention span was good for like 10 minutes, and that was one-on-one. In a class setting, I don't think it would have made it past like 1 or 2 minutes. But so now I've got him going to Taekwondo just down the street, which I would.
Mhm.
It is sad to me that I'm not having him go to your school.
Don't be
I
sad.
am, because
Don't be sad.
I
Every
know,
opportunity to train.
and believe me, I'm not sad about where he's going. I'm just sad that we're not going to your school, but it's really far. I'd never make it to the kids class when he gets out of daycare. Anyhow, the instructors, first of all, are really good at this Taekwondo school. So I really like the instructors. Shout out to Legacy Martial Arts. And there's always a minimum of 2 instructors in the kids class. So and these guys are really good. They just feed positivity to these kids. They feed reinforcement. They still call the kids out when they're screwing around, when they're not paying attention. They make all the corrections they need to make, but they do a lot of positive reinforcement. Anyway, Kaio, he's been asking me to go to karate for a few months. I brought it up to him a few months ago and then didn't really follow through, but then he keeps asking. So finally my neighbor recommended this place. It's around the corner. I'm like, cool, let's try it out. It's great. I love it. So I think Kaio's maybe like 6 or 7 classes in. So for the first like 4 classes, like he was good. His attention span, the classes are 40 minutes. They usually go about 45. His attention span kind of peters off around 25, 30 minutes, but he's still there. He's still mostly present mentally for the last part of class. But just the last 2 classes, I could tell he was pretty disengaged for most of the class. And then yesterday there was no class because they were doing like a competition seminar in the school, or a form seminar or something. And so I was like, hey Kyle, let's practice your Taekwondo here, because I'm paying attention while he's in there, right? So I've learned the white belt combination for kids. So I'm like, let's practice your white belt combination.
So you're willing to know
Sure.
Taekwondo combination and not my combinations. This is why we got rid of combinations.
Yeah, I don't like numbers.
Go ahead.
Fortunately,
Go
this
ahead.
one
Keep
is it's very, very symmetrical. But not like your
Go.
combinations where it's this,
Yeah.
that, and then the other thing.
Okay.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Anyway, I'm like, let's practice. He's like, no, I don't want to. And he got kind of mopey. And he was mopey in the last couple of classes. I'm like, okay, how about we practice later? once you've, this was in the morning. He's like, no, I don't want to do taekwondo anymore. I don't want to go to taekwondo anymore. I'm like, oh, well, why don't you want to go to taekwondo anymore? He's like, I don't like it. I'm like, okay, can you tell me more? And he couldn't, like, he couldn't really articulate it. And the last couple of classes I took him to, I've screwed up on taking him, so shame on me. Normally, he there was a particular time that I normally pick him up from school, and there's only 2 days a week that there's a class where it's convenient to take him to class from that time. But I missed both of those days. So the last 2 times I took him, I had to pick him up from school early and kind of interrupted what he was doing at school to bring him to taekwondo. So I don't know if that played an impact on his engagement in the taekwondo class or not. But anyway, now he's kind of mopey and saying he doesn't want to go anymore. He wants to find a different school. So he's not even saying I don't want to do it anymore. He's saying I want to try something else. But honestly, I mean, and I can do that. I'm perfectly willing to try other schools, but this one's really good. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get better. So what do you think? What how can I approach this with Kaio?
There are many approaches, and none of which are wrong. They're all pretty
Okay.
good approaches. So there's okay. I'm gonna start with a very hard nosed approach. One is that you're dad, and you're gonna go, and he's gonna keep going whether he has a bad day or not. Right. So the first one is like, well, we're committed. As long as you live under my house, you're gonna do martial arts. You chose this
Yep.
one first, so we're gonna finish it. You can either have a lot of bad days there, or you can have a lot of good days.
Yep.
So you
Yeah.
get to choose, right? So you can either choose to have a very good day, kicking with a smile, punching with a smile, sweating with a smile, okay, or we're gonna keep going there because you don't want to go, and you can either and we can either take the approach where you're either gonna get really disciplined or really strong,
I don't know if
right?
he's mature enough to grasp
This
that.
is so I started
Okay.
with that approach because which is the
Right.
hardest approach, which is the hardest approach for parents period, because your heart is with your kids, you don't want to see them suffer, you don't like, but there are some parents who will take that approach and have no problems, right, with their kids being tougher, stronger, regardless of whether it hurts the parents feelings or not, or the
Right.
kids feelings. Okay, a secondary approach would be like to talk to them and say, or to sit them down and say, okay, so I'll let you quit, but you can only quit on the best day you've ever had in taekwondo,
Right. Yeah.
right? Which incentivizes him to work
Yeah.
really hard, make him do everything to the best of his abilities. And then when he's done, like, see, you did
Yeah.
great, right? You did great. Did you enjoy that one? Right. So your goal is to get him to regurgitate that they love it and they're having fun, right? And if you get them to regurgitate that they love it and they're having fun, they'll be like, yeah, you're right. I'm probably okay, okay, okay. We'll try again next week,
Yeah.
right? You know, which helps out. Okay. With that approach, I will say though, well, that approach though, I will say that you have to keep in mind that if you do catch the kid and then they pretend they had the best day of their life and they're like, I still want to quit, then you have to provide them with a caveat that says, but you still need to do something else,
Yeah.
right? Either okay, sure, I'll let you quit, but you have to pick something else, right? Wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, karate, right? But he has to do something else. Gymnastics, even,
Yep.
right? You know, and then there's the strategies that are involved in that. Just my opinion. One of them is like if the attention span is very slow, you have to actually take him there literally like just before it starts, just so he can jump in, do his
Yeah.
thing, get out, right? If you put him in there with so much time in the beginning, he's gonna run the laps inside his mind of like, oh, I've done this already, I'm done, right? So if you bring him there exactly on time, right, get him on the mat exactly on time, then he has no time to explore. Like you gotta kind of correlate kids with like puppies. Sorry, kids. Like a dog, right? If you bring the dog inside a new home in that environment, the first thing they want to do is sniff around, right? Figure out where to go, right? Or the first sniff around, right? But by mere virtue of like the humans that take the dogs with them, the first thing you want to do is introduce the dog to the backyard
Right.
because that's where they do all their dirt, right? And then they can sniff around whatever they want. So the same with the kids, right? With shorter attention spans, when you bring the kid, the first thing they do is I'll go to the coolest parts of this, and then I'm tired of it. So if you bring them exactly on time, then they'll get to do that. Yeah. A second one would be win or lose, small reward. Not a lot, not a big reward, right? So it could be as small as like, hey man, You did that class pretty good today. You have a hard time, but you did great. Like you
Yeah.
did great. Like they're like, really, really. Sometimes they don't get the kick, or they don't know how to do it, or they feel technically inept, as in like, let's say like a spinning back kick or
Yep.
something like that, and they're like, I don't know how to do it. I tried it already. I'm done. So you provide them with the no opportunity to to dwell on this inefficiency, as in like you change the lens they look through. Said you tried, bro. It was good. You had that one kick. That one kick was nice. You want to practice it at home? We can do that at home, right? Which reinforces that behavior. What takes away from that behavior is like I said, right? The little toddler. So the toddler is hardwired to please the adult. So like if the adult's not pleased, then the child's gonna look for another way to get your attention. And guess what that is, right? Bad behavior.
It's new territory for me, man. I've
Yeah.
begrudgingly taught several kids classes at your
Yeah.
school, which is challenging,
You did
but
not begrudgingly.
always ends
You
up being a
said
good time.
you actually said like I want to.
Always ends up being a good time, but being on the other side
It's
as
good.
a parent is new territory for me. So thank you for presenting these options. I expect we'll be having more of these conversations over the years as
Absolutely.
Kaio grows and matures.
Open book.
So I want him to keep trying. Right, it's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm at a
100%.
crossroads because I paid for a 2 week trial, which just ended. So now I have to
Yeah.
decide if I'm going to
Yeah.
keep paying for this or not. So
True. True.
it's I got to make a
Go see if
decision.
you can. Go see if you have the option to pay like 3 months at a
They do
time or
have that.
something like
Yeah.
that.
So they have 3,
Oh, there you
6,
go.
12
Yeah.
months. So
Yeah.
obviously it's more cost effective to pay for a longer contract, but
Sure.
if I don't
Sure.
know if this is going to last, then not very cost effective to pay for 6 months and he quits after 2. So yeah, I'll probably do that, but I do want to see him keep trying. It is so cute. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's super cute. Like I sent you a video, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so
100%. Yeah. It's
super
very cute.
Okay, all right, we're gonna wrap up. But what would you say to someone that is, let's just say, Krav Maga or self defense curious, right? Like they don't like the idea of taking a martial arts. So let's just say an average adult never done martial arts in their life. They kind of feel like it's a useful skill to have, but it's very intimidating to even think about just walking into a new studio.
Okay. So through the lens of me as the owner of the school, or as somebody who trains on the mat, like you want to get your friends in.
Let's hear it as the owner of the school first.
Sure. Like everything is worth a try once. Yeah. You have to try it, and you have to do it, and even go as far as saying try it for at least 2 weeks or a month. You get to try. You get to try. See if you like the way the instructors teach. If you like the people in it. Usually, it makes a very happy makes a very happy
Yeah.
student. Yeah. As somebody who trains, let's say, and I want to invite my friends, the best way to do it, by my experience, is to say like, "Hey, what are you doing on Wednesday night?" And they're gonna be like, "Why? Come train with me real quick."
Yeah.
You know, because they'll approach it with an open mind instead of like, "I do Krav Maga. You want to try Krav Maga?" And they're like, "What's Krav Maga?" Especially, it's a foreign word. It's not in English, and it's not like, it's not as sexy and appealing as saying like, "Hey, you want to be a foodie and try this restaurant that just opened up," right? Which is a very
Yeah.
easy thing to do,
Yeah.
you know. So you wanna invite extend the invitation in a manner
You want to
that's
go get sweaty and maybe get
like
hit with me?
not exactly. No, no, no. You know what? You're trying to
Yeah.
enrich your friendships. As in like, hey, what are you doing Wednesday night? Like, let's hang out. I train at this place. Come bring your gym clothes.
Actually, it
Yeah.
it does make a difference. For example, my first Krav Maga class was when I lived in Australia. I was I was living with some friends, sleeping on the corner of their living room floor for the first, I don't know, few weeks or month that I was there before I got a place. And by a amazing coincidence, there was a community center like less than half a block away where some guys were running Krav Maga classes out of there a couple days a week, and they had like a Groupon or something. So me and one of my short term roommates, one of the guys that lived there, we got the Groupon, and so we went and took a couple classes. And then I moved away from there and somewhere else. And then my next roommate and so I was still looking for Krav Maga, but in a new place because it was no longer convenient to go to the place that I'd tried. And so I found a place in downtown Sydney, and lucky for me, my roommate that I had at that time, my next roommate Mao, was also Krav Maga curious, so we went and we tried a class together. We went and they did like every Wednesday night or something. They had like an intro class for people that were interested. So we went and did that together, and we both signed up, and it was awesome. So I would have gone to both either way because I'd been interested in Krav Maga for a little while, but it's just nicer and it's easier to go and start to learn something new and be uncomfortable with someone that you can kind of lean on, and then when you leave you can talk about it together.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And then you guys can go up the system together too. Like it's the people who tend to stick around. They'll become friends and stay
Yeah.
up the system. Yeah. Like Dong and I pretty much did that, right? So we became friends. Oh, on the mat. Yeah. In fairness, we met on the mat, but like we went up the system together. Okay. Let's see who else. And the people that you train with kind of have the same loyalties and anchoring to you because they love
Yeah.
training with you. Like Mr. Christian, right? I started training with him like non class related. So like I had key access, right? When I was still a younger instructor with Bo. Uh, I would open up the shop and then have like
Sunday
a group of
Maga.
us train.
I
Sunday
remember that.
Maga, yeah, yeah. Whose idea was it, Maga? And a row club, right? So we would get some people together and they would just kind of set some timers and then go train. It's very fun. And then you build a
Yeah,
camaraderie.
and the camaraderie and just the environment. You'll know if you're in the right place based on how you see people interacting with each other when you're in there.
Yeah,
And think about it, how many close friends do you have now that you met on the
yeah,
mat? I mean, how
yeah,
about your
100%.
wife, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, yeah, yeah. Well, in fairness, yeah, they were we were set up to be, thanks to a young lady named
A young
Tara.
lady. Now you
Yeah,
sound like an old guy.
I'm getting older. So she said like, hey, I know this friend, and she eventually she was like, I'm trying to get her to
Yeah.
Krav, and I think you guys would be a great match. And I'm assuming she did the same thing with her, and sure enough, she came in, and I met her, and so so ironically, right? So when I do my instructor training, I say like, you get one, like you if you're going to meet a girl on the mat, if you're going to be a teacher of mine here in this school, you have one chance. The second one or the third one, you're a creep. So don't do
You hear that, Kay?
it.
You're done.
Oh man.
All right. Well, let's close it out. But if you guys want to find Noise School, it is called Gateway Cities Krav Maga. It is in La Habra, California. GatewayCitiesKravMaga.com. You can catch him on Instagram, GC Krav Maga, on YouTube. Also, by the way, if you're interested in more background on either Noi or on myself from a Krav Maga lens, there's a couple of great kind of biographical videos on YouTube, on the GC Krav Maga YouTube page, that our amazing student and video professional Marissa Serafini put together. So I will link to those in the show notes as well if you're interested in learning a little bit more. I will link to the studio as well. But Noi, I love you, man. I can't tell you how much it means to me that we get to share in our adult life, that you pursued this passion and that I got to be a part of it. And
But I got to be a
sure,
part of it.
why not?
Thank you.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
I
Folks,
love you, man.
don't
Yeah.
forget, subscribe, like, share. I rely on you to keep us going. Take care. See you next time.